The Ethiopian conquest of Yemen and the prelude to the Year of the Elephant. To understand why Abraha, the former viceroy of Yemen, attacked Mecca, we have to go back to the Ethiopian invasion of Yemen. In the year 523, or around that time, a Jewish king of Himyar, known as Tullahi, whose name was Joseph, was a zealous man of the Jewish faith. Thus, he wanted to forcefully convert the Christians living in his kingdom. He sent an army to attack the city of Najran, and after the successful siege, he told the Christians living there to convert or die. The people who would not convert were slaughtered, and those who could fled. After the massacre of the Christians of Najran, King Joseph Tullahi sent letters to the Lakhmet and the Persian Empire, urging them to do the same. One reason why he might have done that was so that with the Lakhmeds and the Persians killing their Christian population, that would force the Romans to retaliate onto 3 separate kingdoms. However, when the letter reached the Lakhmed kingdom, the Lakhmeds were negotiating peace with the Roman Empire. The Lakhmeds, not willing to antagonize the Romans, showed the contents of the letter to the Romans, and they were horrified. Thus, instead of gaining 2 powerful allies, Tullahi gained the wrath of Rome, and with it their Christian brethren, the Axumite Empire. A Christian man was able to escape the persecution. His name was Tullahi, and in haste he arrived in the court of the Roman Emperor. He beseeched the Roman Emperor for vengeance against the Himyarite kingdom.
Ibn Ishaq, may Allah have mercy upon him,
reports that the Roman Emperor, who at that time was Justin, told Tullahi that he could not directly invade and punish the Himyarite king, but that he would send a letter urging the Ethiopian emperor to punish the Jewish king. Thus, Tullahi went on, and when he arrived to the Ethiopian court, the Negus of Ethiopia, who at that time was Caleb of Axum, he asked the emperor for vengeance, and the Ethiopian emperor answered. He sent an army of over 70,000 men to cross the Red Sea and avenge the massacres of Najran. The army was under the command of a man called Ariat, and he was ordered by the Negus, or the emperor, for that is the word that is used for emperor, to kill 1/3 of the men, to devastate 1/3 of the country, and bring 1/3 of the women and children as slaves and war captives. In this army was a man by the name of Abraha, and it is unknown what rank he held in the Ethiopian expedition. But with the future events that happened, he was possibly a lieutenant, a man of authority. The expedition set forth, and so they went to battle. The Ethiopian forces were said to have overwhelmed the Himyarite armies. The forces of Tullahi were crushed so severely that the king himself rode his horse into the sea and drowned, committing suicide. With a single decisive blow, the Axumite Empire of Ethiopia was able to conquer Yemen. With the decisive blow dealt, Ariyat, the commander of the Ethiopians, went around destroying the fortifications in Yemen. The reason why Ariyat destroyed the fortifications were as follows. By conquering Yemen, they, the Ethiopians, were an outside power, and by being Christians, they were in opposition to the former Jewish regime. And thus, by destroying many castles, Ariyat ensured that should the Himyarites rebel, then the Ethiopians will be able to swiftly put down the opposition, because then the rebels will not have any fortifications to use, and thus will be forced to engage the superior Ethiopian army on the open field. For many years Ariyat ruled Ethiopia. However, Abraha, who had a large influence on the Ethiopian army, disputed the authority of Ariyat. Thus, the Ethiopian force split into two camps. One side was for Ariyat, and the other was on Abraha's side. When the two sides were about to clash, Abraha offered an alternative: single combat. Ariyat, who was the more martial of the two, readily agreed, and so they met. The difference between the two fighters was evident. Abraha was shorter than Ariyat, and he was fatter, while Ariyat was taller, more handsome, and he was built like an ox. When the duel began, Ariyat advanced swiftly and was able to land a blow on Abraha's forehead. The blow was not fatal, but to the surprise of Ariyat, a man by the name of Atawda came from behind Abraha and struck Ariyat, killing him. Thus, we can understand from this event that Abraha was a man of wits and cleverness. After the duel, Atawda asked Abraha for a reward because he was the one who killed Ariyat. Abraha asked what he wanted as a reward for his service. Atawda said he wanted the right to sleep with the women on their wedding night, also known as prima noctis. Abraha paid the blood money for the killing of Ariyat, and the Ethiopians proclaimed him viceroy. All this happened without the knowledge of the emperor of Axum. When the news of this reached the emperor, he was enraged that Abraha did these things without a word or knowledge of the emperor himself. The Ethiopian emperor swore to trample the land of Abraha and cut off his forelocks, meaning hair. And when news reached Abraha of the oath that the emperor swore, Abraha reacted swiftly. Instead of marching his armies to face the emperor, he shaved his head and put dirt of Yemen into a bag and sent it to the emperor of Axum. Abraha's letter read, "O my king, Ariyat was only your slave, and I too am only your slave. We disputed about your orders, for everyone must obey you. But I was more stronger and more skillful in managing the affair of the Abyssinians. And when I was told of the king's oath, I shaved my head and put the dirt in the bag for you to trample, so that you may fulfill your oath concerning me." And with this dazzling display of submission, the Ethiopian emperor forgave Abraha and made him vice-regent of Yemen. This shows us the character of Abraha. He was swiftly able to undermine the authority of Ariyat, the man who conquered Yemen, and in a short amount of time gather enough support not only to start a rival faction, but also to split the Ethiopian army in Yemen. Also, by challenging Ariyat, a man of greater martial prowess, he lulled Ariyat into a sense of security. And when Abraha sprung his trap, Ariyat lost everything, including his life. And by springing his trap so swiftly, Abraha was able to do it without the knowledge and even the intervention of the mighty Ethiopian emperor himself. And when the Ethiopian emperor was enraged, instead of challenging the emperor and possibly losing everything like Ariyat, he decided to lower himself by calling himself a slave and by damaging the reputation of Ariyat, who was slain. By sending the dirt of Yemen for the emperor to stomp, and by shaving his hair, he showed the emperor that not only did the land belong to him, but also Abraha's head and his loyalty. With the emperor's pride and authority unchallenged, Abraha's victory over Ariyat was complete. And thus, Abraha's gaze looked towards the north, to the Arabian Peninsula, for war, plunder, and expansion, and his eyes set on Mecca and the Kaaba. Thank you for watching this video. Like, share, subscribe, and Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.